welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or a loved one, or you're actively in recovery for a short while or many years, at Recovery Today you will find information on topics related to addiction, recovery, and most importantly, living a sober life. Hi, my name is Brandon Holt, aka Be a Hope Dealer. I'm a video correspondent for Recovery Today, and I am joined by a superhuman hope dealer, aka known as one of the coolest dressers in the counseling field. His name is Mr. Robin Exum, who resides in Houston, Texas. Robin has a great story of recovery. He's been sober from alcoholism for 31 years. He is now a licensed professional counselor. He is also a licensed chemical dependency counselor, and he's the founder and CEO of Houston Center for Training and Supervision. Help me welcome our guest, Mr. Robin Exum. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brandon. It's good to be with you today.
Glad to have you with us. How's the weather in Houston, Robin?
Today it's absolutely gorgeous. Blue skies, beautiful. It's just like being on the beach. It's gorgeous.
Well, Robin, we're trying to find out, you're called one of the coolest dressers. Where did you get that nickname from?
Brandon, that goes back to my college years. There was a professor at the University of Houston that said, if you're going to be a professional, you must look the part. You must look professional. And that stuck with me. That had an effect on me because I was eager to become educated and to become a professional, and it just stuck with me. Every time I would go to work, go out to a meeting or something, I would dress professional. It's just been a 25, 30-year habit.
So, Robin, you have an interesting story. It all started when you were 16 years old. You had a death in the family. Your father passed away. And then it triggered you into a lifestyle that became a part of who you are to this day. So tell us about what happened with your father at 16 and kind of what that led to.
Certainly. My story is not unique. There's a lot of people, same progression of the disease, same issues, but at age 16, my father passed away unexpectedly. And that left me and my mom only at home. I was hanging out with my cousins who were smoking marijuana. I couldn't stand marijuana, but they also drank alcohol, and I would start drinking with them. I realized that alcohol took the pain away from losing my father, or at least temporarily. And it seemed like I would feel like Superman the more I drank. And this lasted for years. You know, I guess I had a good liver, but finally I had to start drinking larger amounts of alcohol to get the same effect, that same aha feeling. And I continued drinking all the way into my 20s, mid-20s. I became employed with a very good company back in Lubbock, Texas. And I progressed through the chain, up the ladder, and from Lubbock I went to San Angelo, Texas, did good there, was promoted to Bay City, Texas, did good there, and was promoted and transferred to Houston, Texas in 1981.
So let's go back, Robin, when you said that you started drinking. At what point, I noticed you said you were drinking to cope with the pain. At what point did you realize that you became addicted and dependent on the alcohol?
That's a good question. You know, people talk about the elephant in the living room. I was that elephant at my house. I have a daughter who's 38 years old today, but when she was a little girl, she didn't have any of her friends over to our house for some reason. My wife didn't have any of her friends over to our house. It seems like we would go places, but nobody would come to our house. Also, my drinking progressed, and my language, my anger tended to increase as well. Brandon, according to my wife, I stayed drunk 100 days in a row before they had an intervention done on me. I could not go 4 or 5 hours without a drink of alcohol. Now, this progressed from age 16 all the way up to age 32. I was 32 when the intervention occurred, and I entered detox and alcohol rehabilitation in a hospital, a treatment center, and I was in the hospital 33 days. I knew nothing about alcoholism. I knew nothing about a disease concept. All I knew was I was drinking excessively. The lab said my liver enzymes were extremely high, and the doctors did what they had to do, and I had some fantastic counselors when I was in the hospital here in Houston.
So typically, Robin, you have an enabler when someone is struggling with a substance use disorder. Tell us about your wife. Did she ever play the role of an enabler until she realized that an intervention needed to happen?
Yes, sir, she did. My wife won the Academy Award for enabling. She's got the gold trophy to prove it. Anyway, yes. My wife came from an alcoholic home. Her mother and her father were both alcoholics, and they were both abusive. So she came up in a family of alcoholics. Imagine that. She fell in love with me. Isn't that something? Anyway, we learned that's kind of how it goes today. But yes, she would keep picking me up, brushing me off, lying to the employer on he's sick today. You know the story. And she did this up until it seemed like there was no hope, but there was hope. I was listening to the radio late one night, and there was a DJ here in Houston. I don't recall his name, but he was on the radio for addicts, alcoholics, and people who needed to be in recovery. And I called in, and he talked to me, and I was out in my garage. It was dark, but I was in the garage. I hit my knees right there and said, God, if you're there, please get me some help. I'm miserable. Well, funny thing, about 2 weeks later, I walked in for lunch one day, and there was an intervention just waiting on me. My employer was there. My family was there. Our best friends were there. And I walked in, and they were waiting on me to tell me about my behavior and how I was killing myself.
And let me tag in right there. That's a really great point you brought out, because a lot of times a family may want the person who's struggling to go through an intervention, but if they're not ready to go to the intervention, they may give into it temporarily just to appease the family. But if their heart really wasn't there, they can tend to relapse or leave the treatment center. So was this it for you? Did you know, okay, it's put up or shut up because my family's getting ready to walk away from me?
That's exactly what happened. And I was more or less given an ultimatum that this is it. They had tried everything. My wife had gone to Al-Anon for about the past 4 years prior to this intervention, and she learned that she had to do for herself. She had to learn to be independent. She could not depend on me. So she gathered up these people for the intervention, and yes, I was ready to answer your question. I waved the white flag, so to speak. I surrendered at that point. I was ready. I was told there was a hospital bed waiting for me. Everything had been approved by the insurance that we had at the time. And I dropped what I was doing, and the very next morning entered detox at the hospital. And they kept me, of course. And 33 days I was introduced to the real me, the real problem. They say alcoholism is cunning, baffling, and powerful. That's true. I learned that alcoholism is a disease that works 24/7 to convince you you don't have the disease.
And look at you now, 31 years later. Congratulations, Robin. February 2020, you hit 31 years. Robin, was there ever a moment in your life that was the lowest point? Maybe you thought you were at rock bottom previously, but you weren't. But then there was this one moment where you just said, it doesn't get worse than this.
Brandon, it seems like there was multiple rock bottoms. I had hit my bottom when I thought my father had passed away. I thought that was my bottom, but that was just the beginning of my abusing alcohol and developing alcoholism. Many nights I would pass out at home, and my wife would watch over me, make sure I was still breathing, and made sure that I didn't need medical attention. I mean, I'm not going to get gross here, but it had gotten that bad. But every morning I would wake up with heavy remorse, guilt, and God, why am I like this? And my family showed me that there was hope. They didn't give up on me. They kept telling me I'm a good person. It's my behavior that's bad. They kept telling me, we love you. We just don't like your behavior. And they never gave up on me.
So it wasn't actually you as a person, but it was the behavior that they were having issues with. Robin, someone is watching right now on the verge of giving up. They're at rock bottom. The family is burnt out. They're tired of dealing with the person. They've tried intervention after intervention. What can you say? What kind of hope can you give that family member and that person right in the seat where you were?
Brandon, I would tell that family that they have a loved one that has an illness. They are not responsible for the amount of alcohol they drink. They have to drink to feel normal. It's a compulsion. It's like every cell in your body is screaming for a drink. But they need to love and support that person, surround that person with lots of love, explain to that person that they need healing, they need treatment. There's treatment all over Houston, Texas. There's shelters that give free treatment. There's nonprofits in Houston, Texas. If a person has insurance, there's for-profit hospitals here in Houston. There's no excuse for not getting help. But in the meantime, they have to want the help. And the family just has to continue to encourage them, love them, and not give up, but give hope.
So, Robin, you were at the bottom. You were at the bottom. You were you were done. And now you have a great professional career, 31 years later, sober. Tell us about your professional journey, where you are today, and kind of what you're doing.
Well, when I got out of the hospital in 1989, I did not have a college degree. And I had to make a decision. Did I go right back into the retail environment I came out of, or do I change professions? A lot of soul searching, a lot of prayer, and I decided that I wanted to go get a college degree. So this started in 1989. Well, I kind of liked it. You know, it kind of took the place of alcohol. I was going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every evening at 8 o'clock. I had an AA 12-step sponsor. My sponsor and I was working the 12 steps. I'm going to college. Hey, I like it. So I guess the education bug bit me. I got my undergraduate degree, and that wasn't enough. So I continued going to AA, practicing these principles in all my affairs, working with my sponsor, going to meetings. I finally started sponsoring newly sobered individuals, but then I finished college, went into this field. I got an alcohol and drug abuse license in 1992. It's an LCDC license today. It was KDAC, CADAC back then, but it's now an LCDC professional license. So I've been practicing addictive disorder counseling, alcoholism counseling since 1992. I finished my master's program at University of Houston, became a LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, now an LPC supervisor, and I'm training other therapists to help people like I was with addiction, mood disorders, anger, and families of alcoholics.
So, Robin, this is not what you do, but it seems this is who you are. The 12-step, you've had the spiritual awakening, and now you're carrying this message to other alcoholics and addicts. You're training new therapists, counselors. You're still going to AA. You've sponsored people. You've demonstrated to us that you can have a substance use disorder and eventually be the CEO and founder of your own treatment center. What is it that motivates you? Does your faith play a part in your sobriety?
My faith does play a part in it. I feel like I'm here for a reason, and I think my God, my higher power, brought me through the storm, and I believe it's my job to give back. I'm told that in order to keep what I have to give it away. That's a cliche that's been around way before I got sober. So I really feel a passion about treating this illness. This is a disease that ruins lives. It ruins families. It ruins children. It ruins lives, period. And it's a one day at a time process. I've worked in numerous treatment centers since I became licensed. You know, I've treated adolescents. I've treated the parents of adolescents. I've treated adult males in nonprofit organizations. And now I treat private practice clients. This disease, Brandon, affects all socioeconomic levels. I have treated medical doctors, attorneys, college professors, and construction workers. It's all alike. The disease has affected them the same.
And I'm glad you said that, Robin, because that leads into the COVID-19 crisis that has affected the world. Paranoia, anxiety, depression is at an all-time high. The unemployment rate has skyrocketed. People of all professions, you said you've treated doctors and lawyers and teachers, anyone you can think of. I know that one of the triggers for relapse is boredom, isolation, grief, not necessarily the passing of a loved one, but possibly the losing of a job. What kind of hope can you give someone today who's, really struggling with this coronavirus shutdown, who's either used or thinking about using, and what kind of hope can you give them?
First of all, they need to remember what they've learned in the program. This too shall pass. This is temporary. Yes, it may last the rest of this year, but there's a few principles that we have to remember. We have to talk to our higher power daily. We have to call our sponsors daily to check in. I would never sponsor someone through a pandemic like this without talking to them at least one time per day. You can still go to your 12-step meetings online, but you're going to be joined by strangers. There's a lot of online AA 12-step meetings today. You're not meeting locally at your AA club, but you can meet new people by going to AA online. You have to tell yourself that you've got to be willing to go to any length not to drink and not to drug. Yes, alcoholism is a lonely disease. It makes us isolate, and we're isolating right now. And unfortunately, it has caused some domestic violence issues. My phone has been ringing off the wall. People are at their wits' end. They have to practice prayer, meditation. They have to eat right, exercise, and follow their sponsors' advice.
Robin, I tell you, man, your story is just awesome. You've been dealing hope to us today. If you could define Robin Exum in one word, what would that word be?
I guess it would be servant. I feel like I'm here to serve the addict, the alcoholic. I need to serve my community and be a leader in the disease of addiction, treating all addictive disorders, alcohol, drugs, and to bring hope to our community, our families, and the alcoholic.
Robin, I appreciate your words. In case we never see each other again, what advice can you give me so that I can always say, this is what Robin Exum told me?
Brandon, it would be to just remember where you've come from and remember where you don't want to go. I would certainly encourage you to read a lot about the field you're in, pray a lot, make sure you talk to your family, and keep doing what you're doing by bringing hope to the recovering community and the people who will soon be in the recovering community. We need everyone to join together to bring the message to the recovering addict and alcoholic.
There you have it, everybody. This is Brandon Holt, a.k.a. Be a Hope Dealer with Recovery Today magazine. I had a great interview with Robin Exum. Robin, we appreciate you taking the time out to share some wisdom, strength, and hope with us. Until we meet again, have a wonderful, wonderful day.